My name is Jeff Miles. This is Next Chapter Living, planning your retirement story with Stephen Sabo of Executive Financial Group. And first and foremost, Stephen, want to say hello. And I know that you're doing well, but I know things in the area have been a little strange as of late. As we're recording this, it's we'll give the date here. It's July 16th of 2024, and obviously there was some big happenings that happened this past weekend. How are the sentiments around the office and people as they're coming in to say hi?
Yeah, I mean, this was July 13th. It's going to forever be, a really weird day here in history in Butler, Pennsylvania, a small town outside of Pittsburgh. And, it's a little odd. People, I think, are just still kind of in shock that something like that took place in our little town,
Right. Well, we are in an election year, and I would say that now more than ever with the world of politics and the world listen, as crazy as it sounds, one of the biggest things that could be affected by this coming election are people's retirement plans. What's going on with their retirement plans? There's an interesting story. It's about this guy. He's in his 70s. This is from marketwatch.com. And they had an advice column where he wrote in and said that his goal is to become a millionaire. He currently has about $750,000 saved already. So about close to, a little over $750,000. But he wants $1 million. And his question is, how do I achieve that? And then the person who is asking that question also is, okay, but why do you feel like you need $1 million? Are there people who are wanting to make unnecessary risks in their retirement to get to kind of like that golden number?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see that all the time. And, I have the same kind of question as the guy in the article. Why? What is the reason for it? And, it's funny. We had a pretty similar situation. There was a couple that came in. I believe the gentleman was about 73, so a few years older, and they had around $750,000, $753,000.
Sure.
That we ended up rolling over. And, he was still chugging along at work, and he was starting to have some health issues, but he was chugging along at work because same exact thing. He always had in his mind that he wanted to get to that $1 million mark, and he knew that they were close. And if I could just stick it out a few more years, that maybe we could do it. And they were a referral from somebody. So we sat down with them and we had that exact same question. What is it about that? And it was kind of just this, like you said, a mythological number. I need to get to that million. It's going to make me feel, somebody said so-and-so, or I read here that we should have that much money. And we had that same question. Well, why is it? And after sitting down with them and doing some work, we figured out, well, you don't need that million. And if you wanted to go now, especially because your health is, slipping a little bit, you're 73 years old, you're not retired, you can create the income that you need. What's the reasoning? And it was funny. His wife said, she started hitting him and saying, I knew we should have been doing this 10 years ago and we could have retired. And so it was funny. And we had a laugh, but, that was a serious goal for him. And had they not met us, maybe he would have been still working today.
This is one of the biggest questions that people have when it comes to retirement. Am I going to have enough money to reach the end before I, have had my time on this life and I leave this world? Will I have enough to get me to the end? And for so many people, and, you see TV commercials and you see the people walking around, either there's a bubble above their head with a number that they're supposed to have, or they're carrying around that big, whatever it is. Yeah. And it has a number on it. Many people do see that $1 million mark as kind of they see it as a marker. And also, there's possibly a little ego that goes into that, is I'm a millionaire.
Sure.
Is it necessary, though? And what are some of the different factors that determine whether or not that number is enough or you need to get there? Or is this more of a vanity thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's different everywhere that you live in different, parts of the country and everything like that. But here in Butler, PA, where things are, it's not quite like New York City,
Sure.
Prices, although they're going up everywhere, it's still not where you're buying a 2-bedroom home for $1 million like in California. So no, as far as what we see, you don't need that $1 million. We have plenty of clients that haven't reached that mark and will never reach that mark. And that's just okay. It's about how we deploy those assets that they do have. How do we
Right.
create that income that they need? How do we make sure that the money is going to be there as long as they need it? So we see that all the time. People come to us and, we say, the worst that can happen is we sit down and we run these numbers and we take a look at your budget and we see how much you're going to get from Social Security, and do you have a pension? What are your other sources of income, and how much, do you need in a budget and to be able to enjoy yourself in retirement? That's the whole point. And then from there, we kind of work backwards and say, okay, look, you could draw X amount of dollars from here, and that would go, earning a conservative rate of return that would last you for the next 40 years. Now, there's other factors that come into play. What happens if I need long-term care? What happens if whatever it is? There's all kinds of different things that we like to build into that. But, that's kind of the short version of it is, let's look at the numbers. Another good example, a lady came in with her mom one time. Her mom was our client, and she was having a hard time driving. So the daughter brought her in and we got to talking to her, and she was complaining the whole interview or the whole, meeting about how she hated work and it was just getting stressful. And so we said, have you ever sat down and looked at it? She never married. She didn't have any kids, so she was able to save a good amount of money. And she said, oh, no, I can't retire yet. I'm, 58 years old. And, so-and-so said I got to be at least 65. And so I'm going to be here. And we said, well, there's worse that's going to happen is we're going to come back and say, hey, you know what? You're right. You do have a few more years to go, and that's okay. We brought her back in a couple of weeks ago, and she was, kind of nervous. And we said, don't be nervous. Everything's okay. And, we said to her, if you could retire today, would you? And I absolutely would. And we said, well, we have good news. You can retire. I mean, if that's what you wanted to do, you could retire with the amount of money that you have and what we could create as an income. And she jumped up and gave us a hug, and she was so happy. And it was, it's a good feeling for us too, because, you see somebody at work that isn't having a great time. They're, it's miserable. She was a nurse and working in a hospital, and the pandemic, that was tough. And, so there were a lot of things that were happening, her health, some issues there. And, she's so happy. And here she is, she gets to spend time with her mom. She's doing all these things that she loves. And, again, didn't have $1 million, had pretty close, but didn't have $1 million. And that was plenty to do what she needed to do, because her budget isn't wild. She, her fixed expenses are low, and the things that she wants to do with her mom and the traveling and everything was all within her budget. And, we said we can absolutely make that happen. So,
this is one of the things I think a lot of people, maybe they don't necessarily have the idea of when, how much. These are the reasons why you want to speak to a financial advisor, because everybody's situation is different. And I know you're able to run many different scenarios to see what could work for an individual person. A lot of that has to do with where their money's allocated, right? Because there might be a situation where you may have $1 million, and let's say because of taxes, because of, your RMDs and things like that, could put you in a tax bracket where you're not getting as much as, say, somebody who had a little less than $1 million. And because of where their money is allocated and taxes and things like that, they may actually have more just based off of their situation.
Yeah, we see that all the time. One of the things that we do for people, and some people get surprised, especially people that are under that $1 million threshold, and maybe their income is fairly low because their Social Security isn't a lot. They're really not drawing a lot from their accounts. And they're considered, although they're not, poor by any means at all, in the eyes of the government, in the eyes of the, in the IRS, they're considered, lower income on paper. And that's just fine with us. We like to keep it that way because that means you're paying less tax. That's more money in your pocket. If we can create a situation where your income is low enough that, Social Security isn't being taxed, you're not getting taxes out of Medicare or anything like that, then you're in a great position. And if you don't have a lot of bills, then anything above and beyond your fixed, your fixed bills, that's all money that you can enjoy and do things with. So
And
we
it
see
might
that
be
a lot.
something that you can start now, and you think that you're having to wait another 5 years. Why not enjoy the time that you have? Hey, listen, This is a great time for you to see a financial advisor. You can reach out to Stephen Sabo and the family. Everybody there is doing this all together at Executive Financial Group. And one of the things that if you're listening to the podcast right now and you haven't subscribed or you haven't clicked the little notification bell to let you know when we've got new content coming out, be sure to do that, because if you're listening right now and you've had that number in your head and you're thinking there's no way I can do this until I hit that minimum number, whatever that may be for you, it's a good time. Stephen, this is a great time for somebody to come in, say hi, and talk to a financial professional like yourself, an advisor who can really give them scenarios that it might work now and you may not have to keep going on the work front.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the worst that can happen is we sit there and say, you know what, it's going to be just a little bit longer, but we're going to work for a plan towards that and start counting down those days. So it never hurts to ask. It never hurts to see. We love talking to people and finding that out for them. So
that's kind of a great feeling when you go into it. It's almost, and I don't want to say it's a low expectation kind of a feeling, but it's kind of the feeling of when you're walking in, if you already have this idea and you're telling me that, what's the worst that could happen? The plan that you have in your head might actually be the plan that we have to go with. But what's better than that is that there is, there's also the situation where it could be that you don't have to keep waiting before you retire. And this is why it's a good time to reach out. Like, no waiting on this. Like, go ahead and jump in the water. It's fine.
Yep.
Reach out to Stephen and the group at executivefinancialgroup.com. Again, that's executivefinancialgroup.com. Stephen, you see this all the time. I'm sure that one of the biggest joys of what you do is kind of delivering that news to a lot of people that it might be a little better.
Those are the fun days in the office, whenever we get to sit down with somebody and say, hey, look, all this hard work, all the sacrifice that you've done over these years, it's paid off. And now's the big ticket. Now you can go, now you can retire, enjoy yourself, whatever it is that you wanted to do. We have a plan for it and we're ready.
Love that. Thank you so much for listening to Next Chapter Living, planning your retirement story. Once again, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. You can get all the information, all of the future episodes, the notifications. Make sure you got those turned on as well. Stephen, always a pleasure, man. It's great to catch up with you, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Well, we appreciate it, and we had a really great time. Thank you.
The opinions expressed by Stephen Sabo and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this podcast station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, a registered investment advisor. VCM and Executive Financial Group are independent of each other. Pennsylvania Insurance License number 670429. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.